Hi and welcome to another Build With Me video. In this project we're going to be constructing this audio level indicator. It's a kit, the link will be in the description. Quite a simple one, just a nice little easy project, especially for perhaps somebody new into electronics. So this is what it looks like when it's built up as per the instructions, and as you can see it has a bar graph of LEDs sort of mirroring from the center and not using the traditional colors for a VU meter, but just alternating between red, green and blue. But of course you can customize those. So let's have a look and see what comes in this kit. So we have 3 little bags of LEDs, helpfully with a little coloured sticker on them to indicate which colour is which. Little bag of components, we'll look at that in a minute. Audio lead and a power USB lead, and then 2 circuit boards, which we'll take a look at in closer detail in a moment. So what are the components that you get? Okay, 2 of these LM3914 dip chips, no protection whatsoever, either physical or anti-static. Well, that's okay. We've got a couple of sockets for them. Quite often these arrive with the pins a little bent, so a bit of straightening has to happen. We've got some little connectors. This is how the 2 circuit boards connect together. We've got some resistors, little signal diode, microphone. And we've got power input connector, headphone type jack connector, so you can feed audio in directly, power switch, some capacitors, and some more capacitors, and 2 little transistors. Not sure if you can make out that. It looks like S8050, but there's 2 of those as well. Now the circuit boards, this one obviously is for the display for all of the LEDs, and these, when we just flip it over, you can see that these are just commoned together so that the pairs of LEDs are just directly linked, and then wired through to these connectors. Helpfully, they've also shown which color of LED is designated for each slot, but you can mix them up if you want to. These, as you can see on this, are alternating between each of the colors, but if you wanted to, you could put sort of a couple of red at the beginning, then some blue, then green, and then red up near the top again, so that it'd be more like a traditional VU meter, of course without the yellow. Then this is the main PCB. This is the back of it as we look at it from this perspective. There is a couple of components that are mounted on the back, namely the switch and then this variable resistor, and then everything else is on this side here. That's just a brief overview. We're going to have a look now at the supplied instructions, which amazingly for one of these kits are fairly comprehensive. So like we said, these instructions are pretty good, very comprehensive. We've got parts list on each of the pages, and then step-by-step instructions in pretty much the right order that I would have liked to have seen them, namely the smallest components like the resistors, the diodes first, then moving up to slightly larger physically components, the capacitors, the transistor, not a triode, this is not valve powered, then power socket, capacitors, more capacitors, gradually getting bigger, getting up to the microphone. I may, on this kit, install this microphone on the other side of the circuit board. As you can see here, it's hidden away just in there, and it's fairly well sheltered. But if I want to put this maybe in a 3D printed enclosure, well then I could mount it on the back, just making sure that it's the polarity is the right way around. It does matter. It's an electret microphone, so it does matter which way around it goes. But I should be able to mount it on the back, perhaps spaced off the board slightly, and then be able to design a case where there's an adjustment hole and also some sort of a grid or a hole for the sound to get in to the microphone. And good instructions on keeping the polarity or observing the polarity of the sockets for the ICs, and then also for our pin connectors. And there's a little hint that will make it easier to get these to line up when we put them together, which I'll show you. And moving on to the LED indicator board, showing if you want to install them as indicated, like I've done on here, with them, they're a bit washed out there, but alternating the colors, or you can put them in whatever color sequence that you want. And finally, we've got a nice circuit diagram, which helps you to understand how the circuit is working and operating, and then an absolutely gigantic parts list. So let's jump in and start on the main circuit board and go through the instructions as they are written. So with starting with the resistors, what I like to do is just double check that these are the values that we need just with my meter. And as you can see here, this one down at the bottom of the screen, I'm just testing is 1K, and then I just write on it as I've done, as you can see, with the rest, even including testing this single one. It's the only single value of resistor, which according to this, the only single value is 1 meg, but mistakes can be made, so it's worth just double checking these. You may know the color codes off by heart. I don't. I just rely on testing them, because again, you can get ones that the color codes don't truly match up. This is only a cheap kit, we have to remember. So this just is a bit of a sanity check, and it means that we can have confidence in what we're doing. So we shall start with the single 1 meg resistor, which according to this is R11. So just pull off the little paper tabs, form the leads roughly into shape, and then we shall find R11 on this. Now the good thing is on this that they are all the values are on the PCB as well. So here we go, we've got R11. Hold it in place and then just tease the legs out ever so slightly, and then we can solder that in place. There we go, first component in. Now some people will put all of the resistors in and then turn it over and solder them. Some will do it one by one. It's entirely up to whatever you're comfortable with. I tend to do it just by value. So let's try these 1K resistors, which go into this is R1 and R2. And then we can search for R1 and R2. Here is one of them. Again, splay the leads out. And here's the other one. Sometimes the problem can be, especially at the start, the board is so small and light, it just moves around. So let's move on to 100K. 100K, that's R9 and R10. So it's very helpful that they've got the values printed on the board as well as just the designator. Definitely makes things a lot easier. Sometimes if you're not sure if you've got them positioned right, just solder one lead in, lift it up, then you can have a little look and reposition the component if needs be, and then solder in the other lead or leads. So next up, 3K. One of them is up here. Sometimes if the board tips a little bit, your soldering iron can be in contact with the lead of the component, but it's not making contact with the pad on the board, and so it's not getting enough heat, and so it doesn't solder properly. So all we've got left now are these 10K resistors. As you can see, I formed these leads a little bit too wide, so they don't quite fit in as snugly as some of the others. So next, according to the instructions, let's get the relevant part in here. We have our diode. Here we have it. And of course we've got the legend with the arrow pointing towards the line, the vertical line. And so the vertical line is also represented by the stripe on the package of the diode. It may be a black stripe in this, as it is in this case, or in some diodes, because they have a black package and it's a white stripe. But we just need to make sure that we put this in the same orientation. So let's just see. Bent that a little far away, that one. If I raise it up, you can just see the stripe and also the vertical line on the silk screen. So we've got it in the right way around. As you can see, I keep turning the circuit board round as I solder the leads. That's just to make things a little bit easier for me, as I'm right-handed. I'm holding the soldering iron in my right hand, so it just makes it a bit easier.